Welcome to the Realizations Podcast. I'm Andrea Gordon, your host, and I'm excited to explore the world of real estate with you. In a world where perceptions often overshadow reality, Realizations seeks to redefine what it means to be a realtor. Join me as we peel back the layers of the industry, uncovering inspiring stories and celebrating the good in real estate. Whether you're a homeowner, a fellow realtor, or simply curious, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Realizations, where perceptions meet reality. Let's dive right in. Welcome to Realizations. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. And I wanted to ask you some questions about what it is you do in the industry and your background and how you got to where you are. So starting off, how did you get into real estate?
Well, honestly, I always knew I wanted to be in it. I was in college. I knew it was a great path to making money. Honestly, that's how my brain originally thought about it. And I didn't know where to start. So I had no money coming out of school. And I knew I wanted to be on the investment side. So I got my real estate license. And became a realtor. I was helping people, find rental properties. And some investors, I was trying to help them with, find flips and stuff like that. I would even do rentals, but I realized I wasn't that good at it, to be honest. I wasn't that good at, um, walking into 10 houses and looking at different colors and people are very picky in terms of what they want. And that wasn't really my forte. I was more on the number side of things. Like, does this deal make sense if you do X, Y, and Z?
Does it pencil out?
Does it pencil out? That's how I think about everything, to be completely honest.
And for my viewers, can you explain what penciling out actually means?
I mean, every investor needs to make a certain profit margin, right? Most flippers are looking for about a 30, even in my market, about 35% return on a flip. And these are lower dollar flips, anywhere from, resale about 200 to 250. And then, in terms of buying investment properties, does the property cash flow? Everyone's looking to get in at, probably about an 8 to a 10 cap in my market, with value add.
Okay, and now let's explain to my viewers what a 10 cap would be.
So basically a 10 cap would be this 10% return on your investment of the entire purchase after you backed out all of the expenses, operating from property management, insurance, taxes, and then obviously the maintenance to run the property. So all of that backed out, if you make 10% return, that's considered a very good deal.
And when you are looking at properties, some of them you buy and hold, and some of them you flip. What is it that determines what you hold, and what is it that determines what you flip?
Well, in terms of, we're a flipping company, so we are flipping 90% of everything that comes through our door. But I only have so much capacity to take on multiple rental properties, and I'm only looking at multifamily. I do not hold any single families in my portfolio. So if it's a single family, it's going to be bought and sold. But I'm only looking for about one big project per year in terms of something that I actually keep in my portfolio, and everything else is either sold right away to another investor or we'll fix it up and then sell it to an end user.
Okay, and when you are selling to another investor, what are the tools that you use to find these people?
So we do a lot of networking. I work with a lot of real estate agents. I work with a lot of other wholesalers who are in the industry and stuff like that. You kind of, over time, you're building up these relationships, which that's normal. But if someone who wanted to get into it and, like, I don't know anybody aside from going to like a real estate meetup or calling some local realtors, all that data is public knowledge. So if someone bought and sold a property in an area that you have a property that you want to sell, you can look that information up. You can find their information and you can just call them. And, when we first got started, that's how we did it. So we would pull people's information and we would just call them and say, hey, I saw you bought 123 Main Street. Would you want to buy 125? Right.
Got it. And when you're advertising these things, are you advertising them on like Frexy or LoopNet or CoStar, or are you just really relying on that network?
No, it's all network based. Everything it's never, I mean, we do put some stuff on it, open market for people to see and buy. But if it's a good deal, and we get it in front of enough people, it will sell.
Got it. And are you associated with any particular lenders to make all of this happen? Who are the lenders that you use? How does this all work for you?
So because we're a local company here in New Orleans, we do stuff all over the country in multiple states, but I would say about 80% of our business is here and in Louisiana. And
Mhm.
we only really push our investors to local banks. So we have a few
Sorry.
relationships. No problem. Bless you. We have a few relationships with local banks,
Hmm.
and we will basically push investors to use them because we know that their terms are good, their rates are good, and they're more aggressive on local properties that they actually know. Because any sort of national lender who doesn't understand the market of New Orleans, we've
Right.
always had nightmare issues with trying to get those files closed because they don't understand that 2 blocks away could be a much worse neighborhood than what the property is actually sitting
Right.
in.
I experienced that here where I am in Oakland. You'll get these appraisers from out of the area who have no idea that Rock Ridge is, different than East Oakland or something like that. And so it's very complicated. What sort of rates are you talking about when you're working with these lenders? What's the,
They're high, eight, maybe prime plus one,
okay,
and then maybe 1 point of origination.
okay.
So not like hard money stuff, like much
That's
more
my next
affordable.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, some people will come in and that's what they're going to use, and I can't tell them otherwise. Whether it's because of the income that they claim or the relationship that they have with a hard money lender, you know, ultimately, if I sell a property to someone and they want to use their own financing, I'll never steer them another way. I just try to
Right.
open up the solution, like, hey, you should talk to this person. They're really good. And
Okay.
that's
And
really
then
all I could do.
And then when you are, working with these people, do you form LLCs for the different developments that you do, or do you work under one umbrella? How does that work for you?
Yeah, so we have the one umbrella for the actual company, and then any property that we own, we form a new LLC just for liability purposes.
And why is that? Just out of curiosity.
Basically, because if you were ever sued, one, you have to have the LLC and you have to have a bank account associated with it. So all expenses, income, everything has to move through that bank account. And this is
Right,
how I understand it. I'm not a lawyer or
right,
tax
right.
professional, but but basically the all the expenses will come in and out of that. So if you're ever sued, if anything ever happened on that property, technically all they can come after is that property or basically that entity, and that entity
Right,
only owns one asset, which is that property. So
right,
as a blanket, you would hopefully be covered. Now if you're convoluting your accounts and money's moving in every your personal accounts and stuff like that,
ooh,
the lawyers have an argument to come after you. But
yeah, that would be a terrible thing. So just out of curiosity, at any given time, how many LLCs are you a partner of?
mm, probably 10 or more.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So a few other questions for you, because I know that you're in a part of the country that has experienced a lot of weather related issues and problems. Have you been having problems getting insurance for these different properties?
Oh, it's a massive issue here.
Yeah. Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that for us?
Yeah. So for the most part, can you get insurance? Yeah, you can get it. I've never had a scenario where someone wouldn't write on the specific property. And we're in, New Orleans proper, and we're not deep down in the bayou, so that might be a whole different,
Right.
scenario. But the prices have tripled in the last 2 years,
Yeah.
and that's for every homeowner for the
Right.
most part. And all these privately held companies that went out of business after 2021 from Hurricane Ida, the state had to step in with citizens, and there are some companies here that have come back, but they're very specific on the types of properties that they'll lend to, and it really comes down to the age that they're built. And most of the properties in New Orleans are older, so
Right.
it's usually anything before 1980. They won't touch it. So basically, you have to go through the state plan, and the state
Right.
plan is good, but it's more expensive. They're all expensive to
Yeah.
be honest,
Is
but
the
it's
state
good.
plan like what we have in California? We have something in California called California Fair Plan. And what that is a state mandated program where all of the large carriers that are still in California are forced to pay into a fund. And that is where the money comes from for any payouts in relationship to the California Fair Plan. Is that what it's like in New Orleans?
Yeah, I believe so. So ours is
Okay.
called Citizens, or Cajun Underwriters, and basically they, where they're getting funded, I'm assuming is what you were just explaining. But my understanding is insurance companies take insurance on the premium on the policies that they write. So it's basically
Right.
just like a tiered system, and they file a claim if they have to pay out, which they did, and then they couldn't. So
Yeah, we're having a crisis here in California about insurance, and it actually has become a huge thing in closing deals because, of course, lenders will not loan unless there is insurance on a property. And
yeah.
some places are just not getting it. It's just a little bit mind-boggling. I had a client recently who had a grove of eucalyptus trees behind her house that did not belong to her, that belonged to the city. The insurance company insisted that the entire grove be cut down because eucalyptus trees are very known for being incredibly flammable. And they insisted that 30 trees get cut down that did not even belong to
Wow.
her, that were not on her property, in order for them to continue insuring that property. And no one else would insure that property. She went after Fair Plan. Fair Plan took almost 9 weeks to get back to her. And in
What
the
did she end up
meantime,
doing?
well, her policy lapsed. So she was terrified and stayed home every single day because it was during fire season when this happened. And ultimately, she did get California Fair Plan, and she was so grossed out by the experience that she actually sold the property.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. People are literally in the position of not being able to get insurance here in some places because of the high fire danger in the hills. And that's going to just get worse with global warming.
Oh yeah.
So it's a tough spot to be in. Well, can I ask you a little bit about your work-life balance? I see that you have a wedding ring on. Do you have kids? Do you have a
Nope.
whole?
No kids. No kids. I got married about a year and a half ago. Me and my wife eloped, and then we had our formal wedding in Italy over this summer.
Oh,
So
congratulations. That's just
thank you.
lovely. Very, very cool. And so how are you managing to do everything that you do and also have some sense of mental stability and a good life?
I mean, to be honest, I would say that if I want to work 12 hours a day, I could. But I kind of, and when I first started, I did. I worked weekends. I was
Mhm,
always, basically on. And now to this point, I feel like if I'm efficient enough during the day from about, I wake up pretty early, go to the gym, make sure I have my life together before I actually step into the office. And then
mhm.
from about 9 to 6:37, that's work time. And then
Right.
after that point, I pretty much put my phone down. I don't work on the weekends really. Maybe I'll go see one property on a Saturday, but I'll never work on a Sunday.
Mhm.
And my wife works, she works from home, so she's she's working constantly too. And we don't have any kids, so it kind of affords me to be able to work a little bit more if I have to. And hopefully, when I do have kids someday, that I'll be able to, leave at 5 and or even earlier and go to the t-ball game or something like that.
Very cool. Very cool. I always ask that question of real estate professionals because we all work so darn hard. People, you don't realize it, but we could work 24 hours a day if we didn't put some boundaries on our lives. I have clients call me at 11 o'clock,
Yeah.
6:30 in the morning. It's crazy. I do try to set some boundaries around the morning, but I usually will pick up the phone if it's during, if it's before midnight. So yeah,
God
I
bless
just
you.
was
Yeah.
I was just curious about that. In your field, it's a little different because you're not dealing with an emotional situation for the most part, I would guess.
Correct. Correct.
When you work in the commercial end of things or in the investment end of things, people are just worried about money. They're not worried about, grandmother's clock or, or, their emotional attachment to a house or that sort of thing. Um, so when you were in school and you decided you wanted to get into something that would make you money, why did real estate come to the fore for you?
I don't know why. I had a family member who was in it who I worked for a while. He mentored me, and so I knew kind of what he was doing, but none of the rest, like no one else in my family is really into it. They never really, no one's a realtor, no one really has investment properties, anything like that. And I just, I don't know what started it, but the information was out there. So I was just consuming podcasts of Bigger Pockets and YouTube videos, and I would just listen to them for hours on end. And I thought I was really grasping a lot of it. I was like, oh, I think I understand this. But the second I stepped into it, and I was like, I know nothing. Like I don't know anything. So, I tell people all the time that like I try to help some people out. I do some like part-time coaching of people who want to build their business, and I tell them like you have to just do it. And like there will be things you could never predict, things that I could never tell you
Right,
are going to happen, and you
right,
have to live through it to
right.
basically, you know, to realize it and get better, as long as it doesn't ruin you. So that's
Yeah, no, it's the situations we can end up in real estate are so crazy that it's hard to you can't even describe it to somebody. It's sort of like learning how to drive a car. You get your driver's license and then you actually learn how to drive a car, and you figure out what to be aware of, what not to worry about, how to move forward. um, so do you deal with a lot of tenants in your town?
yeah. I mean, New Orleans has a really strong renter market, and I have tenants of my own, and I self manage everything except for one property. We have a property manager there because it's not close to here, and yeah, I mean, I get, it's like kind of like a second job in a way,
Hmm.
and tenants call, and I pride myself on my rentals, and they're all renovated fully before
Hmm.
I put tenants in there. So I expect them to be in, well maintained,
Hmm.
and I feel like when I take care of the properties, the tenants take care of the properties, right? If they call me for something, I try to send someone immediately, or I'll
Hmm.
come look at it right away. I'm not very handy, so I'm not able to do a lot of this stuff, to be
Right,
honest.
right, right,
So,
right.
but obviously, when you're in the business long enough, you have your list of subs that you use for everything, and that's probably one of the most important things when you own rental properties and flip houses. You need to have your list of subs, and you don't want to give those people away.
Yeah, no kidding. So
Yeah,
is there rent control or anything like that in New Orleans?
not really.
Okay.
Um,
'Cause we
nothing
have
that I've
really
come across.
draconian rent control here. We have rent control that makes it so that people don't want to maintain their buildings because they're never going to I mean, there are people that are living in beautiful two-bedroom apartments that are paying $250 a month because
Wow.
they've been there for so long. And there are eviction controls and there are all kinds of things. Basically, if you get a tenant in and they're there for more than 5 years, it's a very, very hard prospect to get them out.
Huh.
I had a question from your comments earlier. Why is it that you don't hold on to single families out of curiosity?
I'm more concerned. Well, one, cash flow.
Yeah,
I feel like you can cash flow better on multifamilies, but I find that with single families, you not only have roof, four walls, everything, and you have multiple of those to have multiple rental properties, opposed to a multifamily. It's all on. There's one roof.
right,
There's only four walls. You could have 10 tenants in there, and if two tenants move out, I still have eight paying the bills.
right.
If my one tenant moves out of my single family house, I have no income, and
Got it.
not that you should be on the edge where like a couple mortgage payments are going to give you a problem. But if you have at large scale, it could be
Hmm.
a problem, and that happened to people. Um,
Right,
so
right. Yeah, here we have our rent control is such and that it's very complicated, and single family homes currently are still exempted from rent
mm,
control. And so it's actually advantageous in many ways to buy single family homes as investment properties in our particular area.
that makes
The
sense.
other thing that's going on right now in our area is something called the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act,
Okay.
where if if you are putting a house, it has not been voted on and voted in yet, but every single election it comes up, and every single election it gets a little closer to being put into law. What that is where if you put a house on the market or a multi-unit property on the market, the tenants have the right to purchase it for, I believe it's 5% below the highest offer that you receive. That I know.
Why? Why?
Because tenants vote, and tenants basically control the legislature. In a place like Berkeley, for example, where you've got all the university students who are voters, they weigh out. They are way outweighing the homeowners, landowners, that property owners that are voting. And so basically, anytime anything comes up that's seriously to tenants' benefit, it passes. It's a little bit, yeah. So you don't have anything like that in New Orleans. You don't have to
No,
worry about
no,
that.
no. This is Louisiana. It's a landlord friendly state. For sure.
That's good. That's very, very good.
Yeah.
Well, listen, you have been just an utterly wonderful guest today. I think that people learned a lot about investment property and how you go about it. And I think that you also probably gave a lot of people hope that this is a direction that they could take themselves in, because you started from nothing and you became a very, very successful young person in this business. So I really want to applaud you for that. And you've been just a delight. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate you. Take good care.
All right,
bye. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Realizations Podcast. I hope our conversation has shed light on the true essence of real estate and the people behind it. As we wrap up, I want to extend my gratitude to our listeners for their support and engagement. Your feedback drives the heart of this podcast, and I look forward to continuing this journey with you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing to the Realizations Podcast and leaving a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners and spread our message of positivity in the real estate industry. Until next time, remember to keep an open mind, embrace empathy, and always seek the good in every situation. I'm Andrea Gordon, signing off from Realizations. See you next time.